sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm the host of the Sports Psychology Hour radio show in Kansas City. It airs every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, and our shows are podcasted everywhere all over the country. And over the past few years, in addition to our show, we've started the Sports Psychology as a podcast and now via live stream on Facebook and YouTube. I want to invite you to visit my website, which is winnersunlimited.com, where you can click on the podcast tab, listen to podcast episodes we've got back for close to 10 years. All kinds of episodes. I've talked to all kinds of people in sports, coaches, athletes, trainers, parents, across the gamut. And we talk about the mental aspect of sports. And I want to invite you to visit all my social media pages at DRJ Sports Psych on Twitter, Facebook.com/Sports Psychology Hour on Facebook, and at Dr. Andrew Jacobs on YouTube. And we've been doing a series of conversations focusing on coaches and athletes. And today we're fortunate to have Corbett Cimini on with us. He's a sophomore football player at Springfield College on the East Coast. So Corbett, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a college football player. How'd you get involved in football? You started at Pee Wee level. When did you start, and what got you to college as a player?
Yeah, so my story kind of goes, I have an older brother who's 13 years older than me. So I was always fortunate to be able to watch him play football. And ever since I could remember being, around him, is I wanted to be him. So I see him playing high school football, and next thing I know, I'm playing Pee Wee football. I think I was 3 years old when I started playing against 5-year-olds in flag football, and it kind of just took off there. I was fortunate enough. I was learned at a young age. I was pretty good with my God-given abilities. And I went to a Catholic prep school in New Jersey, Red Bank Catholic. The goal was kind of always get to college. I want to see myself playing on Saturdays. And with hard work, I think I'm doing pretty good right now.
So you're a sophomore now.
Yes, sir.
And what position do you play?
Safety.
Okay. You've had lots of coaches along the way, correct?
Yes, I have.
I'm gonna assume some were great and some were not so great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about it for a sec, because one of the things I try to focus on in my weekly radio show on Sunday mornings is about confidence, about coach athlete relationships, about communication. This past week, I did my show about coaches who go a little bit too far in terms of pushing their athletes. And I had a man who's 45 years old call my show, and I believe from Wichita, Kansas, as the show's broadcast a lot of places. And he said for 30 years, he's been hurting because of the things his high school coach said to him and did to him. And we worked through that on the show. It's quite a real revealing conversation with this man. And I felt sorry for him because he's been holding this pain for 30 years about the way his coach dealt with him. So tell us a little bit about your coaches. I assume you've had some really good ones, and you probably had some that weren't so good. So if you don't mind sharing with us, you don't have to give names, but good situations, but maybe some of the bad situations you've had to deal with along the way.
Yeah. So first off, I'll start with the staff at Springfield College. I love the staff. The reason why I think I chose Springfield College was because of the staff. It was such an easy transition going from high school to Springfield. At Springfield, we call the football team the Brotherhood, and we kind of have the same thing at my high school, to where it's family, forget about me, I love you. And we have the same motto up at Springfield. The coaches tie everybody together. They want it to be a true brotherhood. So that's the good side. They can they're great people. There's nothing really more to say. Some of the, I feel like, worst coaches I've had was probably when I was younger, kind of just the old school way, which is kind of funny. Through high school a little, when I was younger, through high school, I'm a pretty laid back person. It takes a lot to really get me going. And one thing that I've found out through all the different coaching styles that I've been around is kind of the lying part, where you say one thing to me, but then you do the complete opposite thing. I feel like that's kind of the worst thing that's happened to me as a player through coaches.
Can you give us a specific example of that where something like that happened? Because if I can interject one thing before you answer that, I always talk about a good coach is a good psychologist, a bad coach is a sports psychologist. Good coaches are good communicators. Great coaches are good listeners.
Yeah.
And I think great coaches take the time to get to understand their athletes. Why are you here? What are your goals? Where do you want to go? How can I help you? A good coach takes the time to really understand their athletes as people beyond the sport. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about that with what you're going to say.
So if I remember correctly, it was my junior year of high school. It's just coming out of COVID. So in New Jersey, we were fortunate enough to have a season. It wasn't a normal season, but we did have a season. Um, Going into it, I was told that I was going to be the starting running back for the season. I
And what
earned
year what year was this in high school for you?
my junior year.
Okay.
I was told through camp that I earned the starting spot at running back, which I was very happy about. I kind of did everything I needed to, plus some, to earn the spot. And the first game comes, and I'm not really out there. So like I said before, I'm kind of a mellow person, and I don't really like to start problems. So I kind of let it go over my head. The next week comes, the
Let me
10th.
let me let me stop you right there real quick. Did you talk to your parents about that? Did you talk to other people on the team about that?
Um, like I said, I'm a pretty mellow person, and it took me a while, which now with the experience I do have, being a sophomore in college, I wish I did talk to my parents sooner. I thought I was more mature than I actually was at the time and thought I could, um, take the problem on by myself. But now looking back at it, I wish I told my parents, after the first week instead of, 4 weeks down the line.
Right.
Yeah.
So that first week goes by, you don't play, you're not starting. Did you play much at all?
I didn't I didn't sit the bench. I played. I also played safety in high school, so I was playing both sides of the ball, but at that point in high school, I really thought I was a running back. I liked offense. I liked the ball in my hands. Um so that's where I thought most of my playing time was going to come. And
Hmm.
when that didn't happen, I kind of brushed it off, whatever. And this kind of happened for the next 3 weeks, except my load on offense kept coming down and my load on defense kept going up.
So let me ask you a question then, if I can interject while you're talking. So you're getting frustrated because you're not playing running back. You're happy you're playing on the defensive side, but you're getting frustrated. Did you think about talking to the coaches, or were you afraid to talk to them, hesitant, scared because you're afraid how they'd react to you? I mean, where did you stand with that?
I was kind of hesitant because through these games we were winning, and I like to see myself as an overall team player to where my problem could be this small compared to the team's problems, at that time and point. So we were winning, I kind of felt the ways I did. Excuse me. But I finally got to the breaking point around the bye week, so mid-season. And I called my coach on the phone. I kind of remember saying like, "Hey coach, am I doing something wrong? Like did I do something wrong to you or to the team or something to where, I feel like I'm not getting the reps that I deserve on offense." And he kind of told me, I Corbett, I can't really say that you did anything wrong. You're doing everything right. So that kind of just left me there confused. And I was like,
That probably you were probably really perplexed with that answer,
I was, yeah. A coach kind of telling me I'm doing everything right, but
but you're not
me,
playing.
yeah, yeah, and me not playing. So I asked him, I was like, are you sure? Like I didn't do anything wrong, like anything. And he's like, no, I can't tell you. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing everything perfectly right. And it was kind of that. I still
So excuse
remember.
me. So did you confront him, be a little more confrontational, say, well, why am I not playing? How come I'm not in there? You said I was going to start and I haven't played. I'm confused what's going on. Or were you afraid to sort of bring that up with him?
I feel like I was more shocked at the answer. I was kind of preparing myself for the worst, saying, "Oh, you're not doing this right. You're doing this wrong." So when he said you're not doing anything wrong, I was kind of just shocked and in disbelief. And I think that's kind of where the conversation ended. And I hang up the phone and I remember looking at my dad and it was just like, he said I'm not doing anything wrong. So I don't like I was just completely shocked at that point. I just didn't know what to do.
So what happened from there?
From there, I continued to see my load decrease on offense, and at the end of the season, ended up starting on defense, and that's where I started the rest of my career, both in high school and college.
And here you are in Springfield College starting as a safety.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is a great example to share with our listeners because I deal with lots of high school kids as well as collegiate professional athletes in my practice. And one of the common themes from a lot of high school kids that I have is a fear of talking to their coach, male or female, doesn't matter what the sport. I have a cross country runner I'm working with right now who is very good, is going to get a college scholarship, but she's afraid to talk to her coach. I have a baseball player I've worked with who's had an abusive coach and he's afraid to talk to him. But I think that fear, because these are people in authority positions, okay, you don't want to tick him off, right? He's your coach, you want to tick him off, but yet you're frustrated. So looking back on that, Corbett, what would you have done differently? Because I think this is a great lesson for a lot of people who are listening who have kids that are playing or that they're actually listening if they're a high school or college athlete. What would you suggest they do when something like this happens?
Definitely looking back at it now, from where I am now to where I was at that point, I definitely would have spoken up a lot sooner. Probably after the first game. I'm getting told throughout the summer that I'm going to be the starting running back, and then at that first game, I'm the second or third running back in. I probably would have said something the next day after the game. It's better to speak up and stop a situation as soon as it's happening instead of letting it grow and letting it boil. Because definitely at the point I did say something, I will tell you I was stressed out and it was probably hurting my game and hurting me overall as a person. So
Did that affect you academically?
maybe a little. I mean, I don't really remember. But problem knowing myself, probably just being so stressed about the game that I love and I put everything for, and being told one thing and not getting the results that I wanted. I probably.
So what did you learn about yourself from that, Corbett, just from that whole experience? Looking back on it now, what would you say you've learned as far as your future dealing with whatever profession you end up going into?
Definitely trust my gut instincts. After that first game, I kind of felt like something was wrong, and I kind of thought to myself, well, it's a team. It's not all about me. Let me try and figure this out. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So my gut definitely was telling me something was up. Um, so
But there was a fear about asking or saying anything because you didn't want to ruffle anybody's feathers.
definitely, yeah.
Okay, so you had that situation. Any other coaches that well, let me ask this: have you ever gone back and talked to the coach about the way that happened, or have you not spoken to him since high school?
Uh, it's kind of hard. I've never spoken to him about that exact moment. Um, but I've talked to him multiple times, going back. I mean, we won two state championships together. Once I was a freshman and as a senior. So I mean,
Congratulations on that. That's
thank
great.
you. Thank you. So I mean, I have a really good relationship with the guy. It's just I don't think I've ever outside of that one time actually sat down with him and talked about it.
Do you think at this point in your life it'd be advantageous to do that, or you don't really want to? My guess is you probably don't want to in a sense, but there's probably
Yeah,
a part of you that wishes you could say something to him.
yeah, I mean, if it ever came up, I would love to, know what happened. If it was, just if I wasn't the fit, if there was something else going on, with one of the other two running backs. Just to kind of know, just to bury it. But I don't really think about it that much. I mean, because of that, I kind of see it as an opportunity for me to play on defense and take safety serious. So I think it got me to a pretty good spot.
Well, you've obviously moved on from that in a positive way, but if that's something that seems to just stick in the back of your head, my advice would be to do one of two things: go in and speak to him, or write him a letter
Mm.
and just say, this is something I've always wanted to ask. I've been confused. You told me I was going to start. I never got to start. My playing time diminished. You pushed me more on defense, which I'm grateful the fact that I got to play defense. But I just don't understand why I didn't start out, like you said, as running back. And it's been something I need an answer for. Do you think if you were to do that, that would ease your mind a little bit about this?
Uh, yeah, probably just to put it to rest. Yeah, like I said, I don't really think about it too much, but yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm bringing it up. We're talking about it. So that causes you to think about it more. But I think it's probably something. This is an issue I've dealt with literally hundreds of athletes over my 43 years with. There's a fear of speaking up to coaches. I had lunch today with one of the greatest soccer goalies ever played in this country, but he's represented the United States in numerous all-star games around the world. And he's a good friend. We've known each other for over 40 years. And we actually talked about this whole issue of communication. And he said, Doc, he goes, the one thing that when you work with our team back in the 80s, you forced everybody to talk. And that helped us win. That helped us succeed. Because everybody got to, when there were issues, we talked about it. People were always afraid. And he goes, I've been on a multiple teams since, knowing you when I worked with you back then. And it's something I always bring up to the team all the time. You got to talk about things. He's a goalkeeper coach now. And he will force the goalies that he works with to talk to them about their fears, their anxieties, and all that type of stuff. And he says it's made a big difference because they, at first it's like, oh, what am I supposed to say? But it's like when he gets into the conversation with them, they start to open up. And he says it makes a big difference in terms of their success because then the fear goes away. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, looking back at it, I think if I did stop it right away or ask the question right away, it definitely would have helped my confidence. Like where I am right now, I could have been a lot sooner. If I asked the question a lot sooner instead of stressing out about it, kind of getting in my own head thinking, am I good enough? Do I really deserve the spot? Did I do something wrong?
Yeah. And that's why I mean, I talk about preparation, focus, attitude, and confidence as the keys to success. But along the lines of those four words, I always emphasize the importance of communication. And fear, I think perhaps is one of the biggest obstacles for any athlete: fear of failure, fear of success, the fear of what could go wrong, or maybe if you do well, see, I told you you could do that and I do it better the next time. So that whole fear, which ties into expectations, you had expectations of what you're going to do, but you're afraid to talk to the coach because you're not doing it. So that would leave me feeling for you, wow, you probably need to learn from that in the future because that can affect what goes on. Obviously, you're at a great school now where you feel great about that, but should something come up like that, would you feel more comfortable now to speak up?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Learning through it and the years that came after it, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. And I think that's just me growing as a man also. Being able to understand that there's not people don't judge you for asking questions. Most coaches actually enjoy when an athlete comes to them and has questions and, uh, intervenes with them, communicates.
I live in Kansas City, and we have a pretty good professional football team here that's done pretty well the last few years. I always like to bring that up. I've worked with several Chiefs players over the years. I work with one of them now. And last night the Chiefs lost to the Eagles in a Monday night game, and the criticism in Kansas City has been everywhere today, okay, about what the Chiefs did wrong, this and that. And expectations play such a key role in sports. And because the Chiefs have been so good, we've got this incredible quarterback and tight end on the team, amongst other players. Got the best kicker in football. We've got a great defensive line. Our defense is playing great, but they lost. And so expectations become a big part of what goes on. There was a pass at the end of the game. Patrick Mahomes threw a 50-yard pass that got dropped in the end zone. Could have been caught, wasn't. Okay. that wide receiver has been ridiculed all over social media today. All right. I'd like to see the people who ridicule him go out there and make that play and see how they do. So social media becomes a big, we're on social media right now, but social media becomes such a big issue the last 5 years, and it's exploded now. So where do you stand with social media? I tell the professional and collegiate athletes I work with during their season to get off social media. If you want to put something on there, put it on there, but don't read it. Don't look at responses. Don't look what people say. Because if you miss a tackle and they score the winning touchdown, what are they going to say about you? You know, if you make the game-winning interception, what are they going to say? Both ways. It goes both extremes. So what are your thoughts, Corbett, on social media and where that plays a role for you?
Definitely. For me, I'm kind of in the same way during the season. I'm not as active as I am in the off season. Um, I like to see my social media, kind of just building my brand, putting myself out there, kind of showing who I really am on and off the field. But definitely the social media it could be for the good or for the worst. Fans love you in the moment when you're at your highs, and they will trash you at your lowest, when you're at your lows. Um, it's kind of just depending on how you use it. Can't let it be a distraction. Kind of basketball reference, like shooters are going to shoot. You can't worry about the shot before because you got the shot after.
Well, I was to use the analogy when you're driving your car where you're looking at the front windshield of the rearview mirror. If you're in the rearview mirror, you're going to crash. You got to look ahead. And in sports, that's the same analogy I try to use. So let me ask you this question: pressure and stress. Everybody has to deal with that at some point in their careers. How have you coped with that and used that positively or negatively as a player for yourself?
Um, I probably, if you asked me this question when I was in high school, I'd give you a different answer. But now that I've, learned a lot, I love the pressure. When the pressure's on, I love the biggest games of the year. Um, you know, I'm fortunate for the games to, we could blow teams out and it's an easy game. It's kind of over by halftime, third quarter. But the big games when the pressure's on, that's what I live for. And I know a bunch of my teammates are the same way. Um, I don't know, I kind of use it to my advantage, when the spotlight's on you, how are you gonna act? I feel like I definitely can feel the pressure, but I use it in a good way to motivate me.
Have you ever uh, seen teammates who have had the pressure get to them to the point that they've fallen apart or choked under pressure? They just couldn't perform.
Not me personally, but just going off of that, thinking about it. Just I feel like not me personally because of both the teams I've been a part of. We kind of pick each other up. We all do our 111th. So if somebody isn't doing their best, if the pressure kind of, I guess, quote unquote, gets to them, it kind of goes unnoticed because if everybody's doing their 111th, I think we'll be okay.
As we wrap things up, Corbett, what would be the message you'd give to younger athletes based on what you've experienced in your career? It's gotten you to the collegiate level and playing and starting. What based on what we talked about earlier, what would you suggest to younger athletes in terms of their coach relationships and what should they do positively or negatively with those?
If I had one thing to say is definitely communicate with the coaches. Now having a lot of coaches over the years, I've learned that coaches love when you communicate with them. It's not a burden to them if you have questions or if you want to, stay extra for film or have a question about plays. They honestly love it. And it gets you to open up to them, not just as a player, but as a person. Kind of going into college, changing over to coaching staffs. I kind of had that point to where I wasn't as vocal as I've been in the past, but living through that freshman year and making the adjustments, I consider some of the coaches on the staff one of like my best friends. I could go to them about anything, be open to them. Yes, that's my one advice. Definitely be open to your coaches. They love to communicate.
Well, Corbett, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, Corbett Cimini. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, Corbett _Cimini 21.
listen, the best of luck to you. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. I can see why you've gotten successful because you've learned from the things that have gone on in your past, and it's made you a stronger person. So the best of luck, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed our conversation, go to my website, winnersunlimited.com, and there you click on the podcast tab. You can listen to episodes, numbers of episodes where I've talked to people just like Corbett about their careers, about sports, about life. That's winnersunlimited.com, the podcast tab. Check it out. Listen to our podcast. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.